Many skeptics, and especially Jesus mythers, say that Jesus was a copy of the Egyptian god Horus. If you know Jesus' story, you'll start to see some similarities. Horus was born of a virgin on December 25th. He was born in a cave, similar to a manger. His birth was announced by a star in the east, and he was visited by 3 wise men. His earthly father had the name Seb, which translates as Joseph. He was baptized by a man called Anup the Baptizer. He had 12 disciples. He preached a sermon on the mount, and his followers recounted the sayings of Eusa. He was said to perform many miracles, like walking on water and raising the dead. He was called the Way, the Truth, and the Light. He was called Christ, the Son of Man, Anointed One, and Messiah. He was crucified between 2 thieves. He was buried for 3 days and rose again. To back all this up, there's a 3,500-year-old inscription at the Temple of Luxor, which depicts the Annunciation, Immaculate Conception, birth and adoration of Horus, and the Magi bearing gifts. Given that the Jews spent a long portion of their history in Egypt, and Jesus apparently spent a period of his childhood in Egypt, this doesn't look very good for the case of Jesus. This is a big problem for Christians, or it would be a problem for Christians if any of it was true. Isis was not a virgin. Horus was directly fathered by Osiris. Plutarch has Isis sleeping with the dead body of Osiris, and then Horus is born, being equated with the god Harpocrates. His legend has Horus being born around the winter solstice, but there is no indication of it being exactly on the 25th of December. For that matter, Jesus is never said in Scripture to be born on that date, either, and another legend has Horus being born around the month of November anyway. There is no evidence of him being born in a cave, being announced by a star, or being visited by wise men. The inscriptions at Luxor Temple have no mention of a virgin birth, annunciation, immaculate conception, or any magi. The purpose of the temple was to show the rejuvenation of Egyptian kingship, as with kings like Amenhotep III and Ramesses II. The kingship in Egypt, like all forms of property, consisted of a duality. It was based on a relationship between the living and the dead. The king exercised the supreme power in the world. He was the intermediary whereby the divine energies of the universe were made available for men. This power he derived from his ancestors, in particular from his father, who for this reason was considered as himself divine. The deceased father in his tomb was the source of the power, called by the Egyptians the Ka, but he was in need of the care of his successor, his beloved son, in order to achieve beatification and to function as a spirit. The living king was Horus, the son and heir of Osiris. The dead king was Osiris, the dweller in the west. Horus's father was Osiris, not Seb, and the name Joseph is not even related to Seb. In addition, Seb was not an earthly father, but the earth god. Anup the Baptizer is an entirely fake character. There is no such name in Egyptian mythology. It is a transliteration of the Coptic spelling of the name Anubis, but Anubis was also not a baptizer. Anup is apparently also one of Horus's 12 disciples, but this isn't the case. Some legends say Horus had 4 sons, which could be considered his followers, and some say he had an untold amount of followers called his Mesnui. Compare this to Jesus, who had 12 disciples specifically for the 12 tribes of Israel. There is no connection. There is no evidence for Horus delivering a Sermon on the Mount, and there are no known titles for Horus spelled Eusa. The closest thing is a city called Eusas. Horus was said to perform miracles, but so are many deities, so this is too broad and too general of a claim. He is never said to have walked on water, though. Horus is said to have raised Osiris from the dead, but Osiris was never referred to with that prefix, nor did he rise from the dead. Osiris became lord of the underworld and never returned in a bodily form. There is no evidence for any of the claimed titles. Not only did crucifixion not exist in ancient Egypt, but Horus is not ever said to have died until he merged with the sun god Re, after which he died and was reborn every day. There is no mention of a tomb or burial for 3 days either. After looking at the evidence behind these claims, it's clear that there is no real link between the accounts of Horus and Jesus. Therefore, it's clear that Jesus is not a copy of Horus.